It's dusk, 200,000 years ago. A man crouches by a fire, the flames dancing in his eyes. He isn't speaking, he's focused. He wraps bark into a tight bundle and slowly heats it. Tar oozes from the bark like syrup, thick and black. With practiced hands, he smears it onto a stone spearhead and fastens it to wood. He's just invented glue. This isn't a modern engineer or scientist. He's what we often dismiss as a caveman, a Neanderthal. And yet, he's problem-solving, crafting, thinking ahead. So, were cavemen really dumb? Or have we been telling ourselves the wrong story? We've inherited a cartoon version of cavemen, hunched, hairy, grunting, dragging clubs, and barely more advanced than apes. The term caveman itself carries the scent of mockery. For much of the 20th century, scientists reinforced that image. One even proposed the name Homo stupidus, literally stupid man, for Neanderthals. But this version of history is falling apart. Recent discoveries reveal not a species of brutes, but of survivors, thinkers, hunters, caregivers, and artists. The kind of humans who faced an ice age and didn't just survive, but adapted and thrived. Let's go back again. You're watching a group of Neanderthals at work. One shapes a flint core with a technique called l'évaluat. It's not random smashing. He chips each edge with precision, knowing exactly where to strike. The result? A sharp, aerodynamic blade, standardized, reliable. Another figures out how to fire harden a wooden spear. A third, perhaps the same man from earlier, uses homemade glue to bind stone to shaft. Sound dumb to you? Neanderthals were doing this 200,000 years ago. Modern Homo sapiens wouldn't figure out similar adhesives for another 100,000 years. And this isn't a one-off. In France, bones of bison and mammoths lie at the bottom of an ancient ravine. They didn't fall there by accident. Neanderthals used the terrain to trap entire herds, an ambush that required planning, teamwork, and deep knowledge of animal behavior. And they weren't just eating meat. Imagine a mother crushing wild peas or roasting acorns for her children. Archaeologists have found microscopic plant particles on Neanderthal teeth, legumes, nuts, even medicinal herbs like chamomile. Not only did they forage, some of them likely understood which plants eased pain or settled the stomach. One man's teeth contained traces of yarrow, a bitter, useless plant, unless you know its healing properties. He didn't chew it by accident. These weren't clueless scavengers. They were foragers with memory, tradition, and taste. Now think about art. In a Spanish cave, deep in the dark, someone took red pigment and carefully painted a series of shapes on the wall. Dots, ladders, and stencils of hands. These paintings are at least 64,000 years old. Older than the presence of Homo sapiens in Europe. Which means Neanderthals did it. In another cave, perforated seashells coated with red ochre were strung together. Jewelry, not for function, for expression, for identity. There's a crude face carved into a stone, the La Roche-Cotard mask, bone chips forming eyes. Is it a toy, a ritual object? We don't know. But it tells us someone saw a face where others saw only rock. These weren't decorations made by instinct. They were symbols, which means imagination, which means culture, but maybe the most human thing about them, care. In northern Iraq, a skeleton was found with a crushed eye socket and a useless arm. Another had a badly damaged foot. These people lived for years after their injuries. In that brutal world. How? Because someone fed them, protected them, helped them walk. That's not survival of the fittest. That's compassion. That's community. You may still wonder, could they speak? Did they have language? We'll never hear a Neanderthal voice, but we've found their hyoid bone, nearly identical to ours. Their skulls had the brain regions linked to speech, and they had the FOXP2 gene, critical for language in humans today. They likely spoke. Maybe their language sounded different, guttural, rhythmic, unfamiliar, but it almost certainly wasn't just grunts. Think of them passing down stories, warning each other of danger, singing to children at night. So, what happened to them? It's easy to say we outsmarted them, that we were simply more advanced, but the truth is murkier. We interbred with Neanderthals. Their DNA lives on in many of us today. They didn't vanish overnight. They merged into us. And their extinction may have had more to do with numbers, climate swings, and unlucky timing than intellect. They weren't too dumb to survive. They were human. And like many humans in history, they were overwhelmed by forces outside their control. Maybe the real question isn't whether cavemen were dumb. Maybe it's why we needed to believe they were. Because if they were smart, if they felt love, made art, shared language, solved problems, then they weren't a separate other. They were us, just a colder, harder, earlier version. So next time you see a cartoon caveman, club in hand, grunting nonsense, remember the man by the fire inventing glue. Not because someone taught him, but because he figured it out. And that's not dumb. That's genius.